Welcome to another episode of Stadio Speaks, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys, insights, and advice from some of the most inspiring leaders in the world. I'm your host, Kanyisa, and today we have a truly special guest with us, Silke Bucker, the brand director at Coca-Cola. Silke has carved out an impressive career in one of the most iconic multinational corporations. Today, she will share her experiences and insights on career growth, leadership, and navigating the corporate world. Whether you're a young professional, a student, or someone aspiring to take on leadership roles, you won't want to miss out on the wealth of knowledge that Silke has to offer. So, without further ado, let's dive into our conversation. Silke, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you grew up.
I actually grew up in a very small town called Bronkhorstspruit. It's between Pretoria and Witbank, and I had a little bit of an unconventional upbringing. My parents owned the only bar in town, so
interesting.
I think I was exposed to some things from a young age that other people maybe weren't exposed to. But a wonderful upbringing, very free, small town living, right? So lots of friends and a really supportive family. From there, I went and I studied marketing. I always knew that this was the direction I wanted to take. So I went and I studied marketing and finished that, and then kind of moved into the corporate environment quite young. So that's probably the one thing that I get teased about a lot in my family, is that when I see something, everything else kind of goes away, and I just
tunnel vision.
I just go, you know. So I was super young when I got inspired by some powerful women in the corporate world, and I decided that was going to be the direction I was going to take.
So why marketing?
You know, it's a wonderful. I love what I do, right? I love my job. If you follow me on social media, you'll see like it's. I'm in love with what I do, and my life is amazing, and I'm super grateful. A huge part of your life is what you do, right? And what marketing gave me even from a young age is it's a beautiful blend between getting to work with people, right? So understanding what drives people's behavior, what kind of consumer psychology goes behind decision making. So there's a lot of people stuff that I find really interesting. Then there's a lot of business stuff as well. So a lot of, you know, you're running a business. You're not just doing creative work. So what is it that you're offering the consumer? How are you making more money for your shareholders? So there's a lot of strategy that's also really fun for me. And then the most important thing for a personality like mine is that there's a lot of creativity as well. So we get to do really bold, brave, and exciting work. But bold, brave, and exciting work doesn't mean anything if it's not changing the world in which we live, right? Which is why I choose the brands that I work on as well. If there's no impact behind the work, then there's no real reason for us to invest in that. But that's why marketing is. I'm super passionate, and I believe all of us have the responsibility to leave the world a little bit better than what we found it. So this is a vehicle for that, right?
Yes, it is. You touched on personality. Like, how would you describe your personality?
I sometimes think if I describe my personality and other people describe my personality, it's a little bit different. You know, when you live in your own head, you think you see things that other people don't. But I'm super authentic, right? I say things as I see it. Sometimes not everyone can handle that, right? But I am a very authentic person. I'm really passionate, and I'm a little bit left of center, so I like to do things that no one else has done before. I like to take things and make them bigger and bolder and brighter. So, but I'm loud and I'm colorful, and I love people. I love my friends. So yeah, a little bit extroverted. Like me, yeah, I can see that.
Do you have anything that kind of like sparked your interest in marketing? Like for me, I watched a movie called Syrup, and I was like, game changing. This is exactly who I want to be.
I can't really point to one exact moment. I think, you know, I remember when I was at school and geography was one of my subjects. And we had to do a project. I was 16, and we had to do a project on like, obviously everything that you're learning, right? And like show, but in a creative way. So everyone did, you know, the study of rocks or whatever. And I love that subject. So no, obviously no dissing the subject. But I turned my project into something completely different. So I turned it into a story. So I made a movie and I put ads in the movie. And it was when I did that I realized that I've got a natural ability to tell stories, right? And that's still till today my passion. So it's not, it's not, there's different facets to marketing, but I am a storyteller, and that makes me happy. So I love writing briefs to agencies because I feel like I'm writing a story when I'm asking my question, or when I do presentations, I alter the presentation based on the audience and how I need to tell the story. So that's always been something that was ingrained through everything that I did, no matter what part of life, what path I walked. Storytelling was very much at the center, and I think it's because I'm an avid reader as well. But that is where I realized that it's very natural for me. It's a natural space to lean into, and a lot of people study marketing because it's a safe thing to study, right? Like I'm not sure what I want to do, so I'm going to do marketing. That wasn't me,
get a job.
Right? That wasn't me. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to study marketing. I'm going to be one of the best marketers in the world, and I'll do anything that I need to do to get to that goal, because I love stories, and I love how I know how I can make people feel, how brands make people feel, the important role that it plays in society. So there was a bigger purpose around it for me in my mind when I made that decision. But in the corporate environment, that's the only space for me, and I know that, right? And I think that's really important when you're a young person, is to understand what you are and what you're not. So we all think that we need to be everything, right? And so I'm coming in the corporate environment, I have to be good at Excel. Guys, I don't even know where Excel is on my laptop, and I've done okay, right? Yes. I've done okay. So you need to know what you are and what you're not. Otherwise, you're constantly going to try to chase the people around you instead of chasing where you want to go, right? So I was very clear. I want to be in marketing. I want to do bold and creative stuff. I didn't want to be in the agency. That's not the space for me, because I like strategy and I like business, and so I knew that I wanted to be on the corporate side, but in a space in corporate where I can be myself. So you need to understand what you are and what you're not, and it's okay to not be everything. We are not everything, right? So yeah, it's a little bit of a deviation from the question that you asked me, but I think that's where it happened. And then you do all these aptitude tests when you're little. Guys, please, okay, don't let that stuff sit with you for the rest of your life. But I remember I did this test, and my parents went with me, and I'm a self-driver, so they didn't even know when my exams were, so I did most of the stuff myself when I was younger.
Really?
Yeah, I'm very hard on myself, so I don't need other people to pressure me. I pressure myself.
Yeah.
And I did this aptitude test, and the guy came back and he was like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you what your daughter needs to study. And we were very surprised. I thought, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I can't do anything. And then he's like, she can do anything she wants, right? And I have carried that with me for my entire life. And I think that's the power of the things that you put in your mind and how that shapes your future shouldn't be underestimated. So when I left that conversation, I was 17 years old. I left feeling I can do anything I want. I can be a mechanic, I can be an engineer, I can go into math, I can be a scientist, I can be a I can do anything I want, right? And instead of that scaring me and saying, oh, now I don't know, I'm confused, I was like, but I want to do this. I want to be creative, but I also want to be in business. And what do I need to do to get me to my goal? So a little bit of a...
That's so funny, because I got told the same thing in high school.
You see?
We had a teacher who, when you about to break to go to grade 8. Was it grade 8? No, grade 10. We have to choose a subject, and then you have to choose pure math, whatever. And then we had a teacher who kind of like guided us. So we had like a class discussion, and then she was like, you should go into this, you're strong at this. And when she came to me, she was like, you can do anything you put your mind to. And I was like, that is so confusing for a 16-year-old, because what is it that I want to do? Like, I don't know, I have no direction. But I've always kind of put in my head that I can do whatever.
You can do whatever you want.
Yes.
You can do whatever you want.
If I apply my mind, I can excel in it.
And that's amazing, right? How empowering is that when you embrace it? It is empowering.
When you embrace
you have to embrace
it, because if you sit in the limbo of I can do anything.
What must I do? Yeah.
Yes. Then it's kind of like crippling.
You know what I realized? I realized that we all, as human beings, we have things that drive us, right? So you're either driven by the fear of failure, or it's fear that drives you. Even no one wants to admit that, but that is a fact, right? We all that's what drives us as people. And my fear, it's so funny because I had to grow up a little bit to understand this, but because of all of these things, my dad always told me I can do whatever I want. And there was no gender stereotypes in my household growing up. So like I didn't grow up thinking I'm a girl and this is my box. I was like, I grew up thinking I can do whatever I want if I work, right? So if I put in the work, I can do whatever I want. And I realize now that I'm a little bit older that the biggest thing for me in my life, and that maybe sometimes causes some internal anxiety, is my fear of not living up to my own potential, right?
Yes, right.
And then when I read stuff like the Taylor Swift Times or Forbes article, and I don't know how many people are Swifties, and I don't care, I think she's amazing, right? But when I read the article, I finished that article with so much anxiety. I'm like, look at this girl, she's living up to her potential. What am I doing? Am I living up to my potential? And it's interesting when you understand the things that drive you, because then you can lean into that and use it to accelerate you instead of it kind of disenabling you or paralyzing you in the moment, right? Sometimes we feel paralyzed because of our fears instead of, this is it, how am I going to use this to propel myself forward? So all of these things come from childhood, guys. It's very interesting.
I love that. So I stalked you, obviously, on all your social media handles, and I saw that you're big on fitness. Where did that come from?
I'm very lucky. I didn't really do a lot of sport at school. I'm not the most sporty person in the world.
Okay.
I danced a lot. So I did a lot of cultural stuff. So I danced and did school plays, and a lot of like extramural activities. But I was only in the hockey team because people were scared of me, not because I had any talent to play hockey, right? I had no talent to play hockey. But then when I left school and I went into my first year, things are a little bit.
Yes.
Now I'm so happy that that's not a thing anymore. We all get to be who we are and look how we look. But and that's amazing. But when I was younger, that was still not what we would do. The times were not the same.
Yes.
Anyway, so there was a little bit of a reality check, right? That everything in life is not given to me. Okay, so I think when we grow up and you're young, you take things for granted, right? It's like I can eat what I want and I still look the same. I can dress how I want and no one bats an eyelid, and that's amazing. We should all be like that forever, right? Like you shouldn't actually care. But I think that was the first kind of confidence knock I got when I realized that things don't just happen, right? I don't just look how I look, or you have to do something, right?
Yeah.
So then I started training and I was 18 years old, and it was the best. I love it. It's one of my biggest happiness habits. It gives me so much endorphins for the day. My energy levels are higher. I'm less tired. I sleep better. My brain is more productive. So more than just kind of the physical things that come from training, it's a holistic development tool that people don't realize, right? And the best thing is that we can all do it.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to cost you money. You can go on a Saturday and go hike in the mountain, right?
Yes.
You can go walk outside in the street. You just have to move. You have to move. So your body will thank you, your brain will thank you. So yeah, it's been 20 years now of consistent movement, and it's probably the foundation in my world that kind of keeps me grounded.
That keeps you balanced.
If I'm super busy and I can't train, I feel it. I didn't train this week. I had a very tough week, and I can feel it. I can feel it. Yeah, I can feel it.
What was your first job, and when did you start working?
So I started working in my parents' restaurant when I was quite young. I'm pretty sure it was illegal, but it's okay. I did it because I didn't want my parents to pay for my stuff. So I wanted a cell phone, right? It was the size of my head at that time, but I really wanted one. And I didn't want them to pay for it. So I worked for a whole summer and I bought my phone, and then I put it on contract, and I worked every weekend so that I could pay my own contract. So I don't know why. It was just like they would have paid if I asked them, I'm sure. No, with 3 children. My brother and sister are twins.
Okay.
I am the oldest.
You're the oldest. Okay.
So I had to grow up very quickly.
Yes.
But
I can tell.
But I love them. I love my family and but yeah, so I started working in the restaurant, and what I loved about that job is I got to experience people, and I learned very young that if I treat certain people in different ways, I get different outcomes.
Get different outcomes.
Right? So that's another thing. We all go through life and we're not intentional. If you are intentional, you will learn in every single interaction that you're in, right? So if it's a good or a bad interaction, and you ask yourself, why did this work and why did this not work? You will learn every single time. And then out of that and based on that, you build the way that you connect with people and the way that you want to move through life based on the outcomes or the objectives that you desire from certain situations, right? So lots of lessons in that first job, but my first like real job outside of my family, I started I did lots of promos and stuff as a promo girl, but that doesn't count, so I'm not going to talk about that. So my first real job was I was a sales rep for SAB Miller in the Western Cape, and I can talk a little bit about that because I think sometimes we think that life is easy and we just get what we want, right? I never wanted to be in sales. It's not my personality. I didn't particularly love it, but I used it as a foundation for the career that I knew that I wanted.
That you wanted to go into, yeah.
So because I spent that time on the ground and I worked with customers and I was in direct contact with consumers, now when I think about plans and I think about how things need to be executed, I have that as a foundation. So it makes me a better marketer, right? The fact that I started there. But it was hard, you know, I studied marketing, and then I did my honors and I got a bursary to do my master's. So I did all of this stuff, and then I went and you know when you're young, you're like, oh, I got my master's, and then I went all the way to the bottom.
From the bottom,
you know,
and then to work your
and
way
I was
up.
like, had to speak here and like be nice to people that maybe sometimes, you know, I don't really want to, because we're just not the same type of human, but I have to because it's my job. So there was a lot of humble pie that I ate in that first role, and it completely changed me. It changed how I approach life. It changed how I approach my career, and it's advice that I'll give to anyone. You have to do the work from the bottom. Otherwise, the depth that you have when you get to the top is not there, and you will get pulled out. You'll get pulled out, right? So
that's such great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, and then walk me through how you got to being a senior director at Coca-Cola.
A lot of hard work and sacrifice, but also a lot of luck, right? And constant manifestation. So we've spoken a lot now about kind of studying and being very clear on what I wanted to do. Yeah, all of the stuff I wanted to do. I have a list of companies that I would work for, right? There are 3 companies, and they change, right? They rotate, and based on what I see the places do and the culture of the organizations. Coke has always been on my list.
Okay.
It's never gone off, right? So I started my career in beer. I worked for SAB Miller, now AB InBev. Amazing company, right? I worked there for 12 years. I built my foundation in marketing. I learned a lot. I worked with some amazing people. But I got to a point where I realized, okay, you know, I want to push a little bit harder. It got really comfortable, and it didn't get comfortable because of the organization. It got comfortable because that's all I knew, right?
Yes.
And for me, when you are comfortable, it's the most dangerous place that you can be, right? So there's a difference feeling like you're in flow and getting comfortable, right? There's a big difference. So I started thinking, and I didn't want to leave, right? I didn't want to leave the organization, but I started thinking, what's next? You know, do I need to leave the continent so that I can get some different exposure? And the moment I opened my mind to thinking a little bit bigger, I got a phone call from Coke, right?
Lovely. Look at the universe working in your favor.
Well, it's called pronoia, when you believe that the universe conspires to make all your dreams come true.
Yes, okay? I'm a chakrahan, and I love that.
Good. So, so I got a phone call from them. I was leading cost and lights across the continent, so a similar role on that side. And I remember the first conversation, I was super flattered, but I was like, you know, I'm not really interested. I love my job. So, but let's have a conversation, and, you know, we can talk. And then as I started speaking to people here, I realized just the culture, the company, obviously this is the most iconic brand in the world, right? Yes. So I would never have said no. Let's also just be clear. I would never have said no. And then probably about 4 months after the first conversation, I moved across, and it's been amazing.
They convinced you.
It wasn't a lot of convincing. It wasn't a lot. The opportunity. You know what? You should never say no in life.
Yes, I believe in that as well. Also, you don't know where it's going to take you. That could be your next opportunity to blossom, and because of fear and stuff, then you say no, and then you don't reach your potential, or you don't know where you are meant to
100%. But you know, the thing is that people don't want to admit what they want in life, right? And if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and look at the good things and the bad things, you don't know how to make decisions, right? So let me give you an example that my business coach gave me, right? And this is going to be super harsh, but I'm going to use it, right? Okay. We all have different things that are important, right? So money does not drive me, Okay, so I'm not and I mean, it's easy to say that because I've got food in a house, so I don't have money, does it drive? But if I didn't have money, I'm sure it would be different, right? But money has never been my driver. Titles has never been my driver, right? My driver is myself. I want to do great work. I want to be proud of the work that I do, and I want to be in a position where the work that I do impacts the world. That is what drives me, right? My husband is the complete opposite, okay? Work is work for him, but he gets driven by like money, like how early can I retire? That's what drives him, and that's okay, right? That's okay. But then there's other things that are important to you. So my business coach said to me, you know, if Tata, and guys, please, no offense on any brands here, okay? I'm just making stuff up. If Tata phoned you and said, we want to offer you the CMO role for 5 million rand a year, okay? And BMW phoned you, and I don't drive a BMW, I don't actually like the brand, but I'm going to use it, right? Or BMW phones you and they say, we will give you the same job for 3 million rand a year. I would probably take the BMW job. Right?
Why?
Because the brand is more impactful. So if I do something, it
Because
lands, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is there's a little bit of ego involved as well, right? And no one wants to say that. So my husband would not care about that. He'd be like, I don't care. 5 million rand, bro. I don't care. Me, I'm like, but I don't really want to say I work for Tata. I want to say I work for BMW. No offense again. I'm just using an example. But you have to get comfortable with the things that drive you. Even if it's bad things, right? Or things that are frowned upon, because those are the things that trip you up in the future. And then once you know those things, it's much easier for you to make decisions, right? So when I was about to leave my previous organization, there was an opportunity for me to go into a global role, right? It was a great role. So if I wanted to be, if going globally was my only goal, right? And money was my goal, then I would have been like, sorry, Coke, I've got this thing now and I'm gonna go, right? But the role wasn't 100% what I wanted. It was removing me a little bit from my path, but they were massive pros, right? In that I would get to work in New York, no. So when I had to put the two options next to each other, this role kept me on the continent a little bit longer, which is great, right? I love Africa, but I also need to expand and I need to grow, right? But what it did is it gave me a platform that is 5 times bigger than any brand I'll ever work on, and probably a lot more than that, right? So the impact of the brand was a lot bigger, and the future potential of this role was much longer than the future potential of the previous role. So that's how I made the decision, right? And then when I moved here, it was hard. Transitioning is very hard. Don't let people lie to you, okay? Like, it's hard. And in the first probably 18 months, when I questioned a lot of things and tried to kind of find my footing and, you know, who am I? It was the fact that I knew why I came here that made me get through those times, right? So if you're not able to tell yourself what I'm really doing here is, if you can't answer that question, the tough times are going to be very hard for you, very hard.
I love that. What have been some of your most rewarding moments in your career so far?
There's two things, right? So I've been a people leader for a while now, and that for me that's probably my favorite part of what I do, right? So I'm really passionate about developing talent. I'm really passionate about developing young African talent and seeing people come out of their shells and accept who they are, and then kind of lean into that piece, and the confidence that comes from that has been really rewarding. My culture on teams, I follow a dream team philosophy. So unfortunately, a lot of companies still talk about culture fit. I completely disagree with that. So I hire for culture add. So I look at my team and I think, what can I bring into that? Who's different? Who thinks different? And it's not just diversity from a demographics perspective, right? It's diversity from how did this person grow up? What is their experience? How do they think about things? So that's how I build the team. And then when you bring a mishmash of people like that together and you allow them to create a culture and the magic that comes from that is, it's amazing, right? And I've done that twice in my career now, and that's probably my two biggest highlights from a people perspective. Personally, I really like doing big things and proving people wrong. And that's very bad, right? So you shouldn't feel that your accomplishments come because of what other people think. It should always be internal. And for me, it is internal, right? But because we push and we try to do things differently, there's always a little bit of resistance, right? In some parts of the work that we do. And when it plays off at the end and people see what you saw from the beginning and standing there and knowing this was your team, right? This is what we saw, and we were brave and we pushed through. That is a feeling that I don't think has been matched.
And then what's your most challenging, maybe like situation or moment in your career so far? Or your toughest moment, let's put it like that.
Look, I mean, life is hard, right? And as much as I love my job, it's hard.
Yes.
And the higher you go, the harder it gets, right? So we think, oh, I want to be in the C-suite because then things are easier and I'm the boss. That's the complete opposite. Okay, it's the complete opposite. So I don't really have like a moment that I'm going to say to you now, this was like my biggest down or my hardest moment. Things are hard, you know, getting work through a bureaucratic system on brands the size of the brands I've worked with is hard. It's complicated, right? And I've learned some tough lessons, you know, I've learned some hard lessons and how I could have maybe done things differently or approached the situation differently. But for me, I don't look back at that and think, you know, that was really hard. I look back and I think, oh, I learned a really good lesson here, right? So even when I reflect on my career, I can tell you where things were difficult, but the outcome for me was always positive, even if it's not what I wanted, because I learned. Right? The pivot for me in my career was when I was about 27 years old, and I wasn't a people leader at the time, but I knew I wanted to be a director. So I already worked on myself. I got a coach. I was like, I need to show them that I can be a people leader.
Focused.
Right? It's fun. It's fun to listen to, but it's not fun to live here, right? But I'm joking. I love my job, so I love my life, and that is my personality. But I did an assessment. I'll never forget this. You know, and I think because I love people, right? So I think, oh my God, everyone loves me. We love working together. And then I got the feedback, and people were so scared of me. Okay,
really?
They didn't want to work with me. They were scared of me. Some words were used like she's aggressive, and I was heartbroken. Okay, because I didn't feel that that's who I was, and I didn't think that that's how people perceived you. And I remember going home and I was so upset. And I wasn't mad at the feedback. I was upset because I made people feel like that, and that was never my intention, right? So what I could have done is I could have taken that feedback and become defiant, right? Or say, oh, I don't care what people say. Or you can take the feedback and you can sit with it and decide what rings true and do you want to work on, and then what do you want to discard, right? And that for me was a turning point in my career, was when I sat with that feedback and I thought, this is not how I want people to feel. So what am I doing, right? What am I doing that's making people
them feel like that?
And I completely changed. I changed my approach. I changed how I speak in meetings. I changed how I speak to people. I did not change who I am, right? So from an authenticity perspective, I'm exactly the same person.
You just changed your delivery.
My delivery and also my understanding of people. We are not all the same. So you just said, oh my God, you're so focused. Everyone is not like me. So if I'm bulldozing into a room and there's people who aren't like that, all the energy shifts. No, the energy shifts. So they're like, I'm not going to say anything because she's already made up her mind, so I'm just going to sit here. So you're disempowering people around the table. So understanding that everyone is different and everyone has something to contribute. And if you have a stronger personality, you have to learn to invite people into the conversation. And when you're young and a little bit immature, that's difficult to understand, right? But that for me was probably the most challenging shift I've had to make, especially because I'm so outspoken about being authentic. And I'm so outspoken about being yourself. And if you are not in an environment where you feel like you can be yourself, you are in the wrong environment. I speak about this all the time. So sitting there and understanding the fine line between, I don't want people to feel like this, which means I need to change, but I don't want to change who I am. What does that look like? Was tough for a young person. But I did it, and I'm very grateful. But that was a pivotal moment, and I think where I started to accelerate was when I took the responsibility for who I am, how I make people feel, and how I can change it. I took the responsibility.
I love that. We need to coach our parents to take responsibility of how they made us feel. What advice would you give young professionals aspiring to leadership roles, especially in like large multinational corporations like Coca-Cola?
You know, sometimes we think that it's our boss's responsibility to promote and develop us. It's not. It's your own responsibility, right?
I love that.
It's your own responsibility. So like I just said to you, I knew where I wanted to go. So I developed myself. So when opportunities opened up, I put up my hand and I said, look what I've already done. I have a business coach, I'm 27. I have a leadership coach, I'm 27. I've read all of these books. I did a leadership development course at Gibbs that I paid for myself. These are all the things I've done because I don't have people reporting to me to develop the skills. Okay? This is what I've done because I know that I want to move into this role or in this type of environment, etc., etc. So your development is in your control. And the more you can do proactively to build a reputation around yourself, the easier it will be for people to move you into those spaces. Right? That is your responsibility and it's in your control.
Yes.
We don't all have the same opportunities. I understand that, right? I understand that we don't all have the same opportunities, but we all have the same 24 hours in our day that Beyonce does.
Yes.
So what are you doing with your 24 hours?
Child, cut the cameras. That is powerful. So powerful. And I think the quicker people realize that, the quicker they're able to take themselves out of their own situation and kind of like take yourself out of your own hole that you've dug, because people tend to dig their own hole.
We love sitting in a hole, guys.
Yes,
we love
and
it.
then they expect people to take themselves out or take
Someone
them
must
out
pick
of
you
it.
out.
People,
No one's
someone
gonna
must
pick you
throw
out.
the ladder in, but you dug the hole. You must build the ladder to take yourself out of it. You know.
It's okay to sometimes be in a hole, but don't stay in the hole.
Don't stay in it.
Sit in the hole for 5 minutes, feel sorry for yourself. That's okay. That's okay. You're allowed to feel, guys, we all have bad days.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Have a bad day.
And sit in your emotions, deal with
And
them,
then- and then
like,
progress.
decide to move on.
Progress. But you have to ask yourself, how did I get in the hole? So that you don't get in the hole again. And this is what people don't do this. Oh, I'm in the hole, and then 3 days later, oh, I'm in the hole again. What is putting you in the hole? Address what's putting you in the hole.
People are afraid of
holding up the mirror.
themselves.
Yes, they don't want to hold up the mirror. Oh, I hold up the mirror all the time.
You're very tough on yourself. Though.
I am. But it's okay. I also love myself a lot. So the balance is good.
That's good. How do you approach personal and professional development in your own career, and what strategies have helped you continue to grow? Besides accountability, because you confront yourself often.
Look, I don't split the two. So there's for me no such thing as personal and professional development. And this is
just development as a whole.
Development, guys. And this is also my issue when people talk about work-life balance. There's no such thing. Okay, your life is your life. Work is part of your life. So you need to work towards harmony, right? Sometimes you'll work harder, sometimes you'll work less hard, but there's no this is my work and this is my life. It's one thing. You bring a whole person to work. If you had a bad night's sleep or your children are sick, you bring all of that to the office. You don't leave that at home. Just like if you had a bad day at the office, you take it home. It's one world. It's not but from a development perspective, like I said earlier, it's amazing because it's in your control, right? So development is your responsibility and it's 100% in your control. How amazing is that? Sometimes you sit and you think, oh, I can't develop myself because my parents didn't have money for me to study. That's fair, right? That's a fair but you can walk into a library and read a book. You can do that, right? It's in your control. You can hit people up on LinkedIn and ask people to be your mentors. You can start small and work your way up. It is 100% in your control. What you make of your life is your decision. You have to decide to be great. If you do not decide to be great, you will not be great. If you decide to just kind of follow the steps and be mediocre, you're going to be mediocre. That is your decision. It's your decision, right? So that is what development is about. You have to decide. I decided I want to be X, right? Whatever it is that you decide. And then you work towards that. You read the right books. You follow the right people on social media. How many people sit and doomless scroll and look at Kim Kardashian on their phone? Please, what are you learning? What are you learning? Nothing. So who are you following? Who are your friends? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Who are you spending your time with? What books are you reading? What corporate companies are you following? What podcasts are you listening to? That is development, right? That is development. And then building a life around yourself that enables you to succeed. So what happiness habits do you have in your world, right? And this is the other thing. Sometimes we leave school and we think, oh, now I have to grow up. I'm an adult now. Sorry for that doesn't work like that. A happy brain is a productive brain.
Yeah.
That is your responsibility. That's why I train. I train because it keeps my brain happy. I dance once a week because it's what I've done since I was a child and it makes me happy. I roller skate with little children on Saturdays because it makes me feel free. I've got happiness habits in my world that enables my brain to remain productive. And then I've got friends. I've got a really good support system. I've got mentors. I've got people that I work for that I admire. So I've built a life around myself that has enabled me to succeed. So there's things in your development that you can control. What do you read? What do you consume? Etc., knowing where you want to go, right?
Yes.
And then a life that you build that you're also in control of that enables you to succeed.
I love that. As a woman in a leadership position, what unique challenges have you faced throughout your career and how have you overcome them?
It's a difficult question for me to answer because I don't feel like that. And I don't feel like that because I didn't grow up like that, right? And I touched on this earlier. So I didn't grow up ever thinking I'm a girl and you are a boy, so I should be different, because I didn't grow up in an environment like that. And then even when I went to study, I just don't think of the world in that way, right? For me, we're all people, and we all have certain skills that we can lean into, and whether you're a boy or a girl, it really doesn't matter to me. That is not the reality, and I understand that, right? I understand that, but because I did not have that lens, I never leaned into that storyline or into that narrative, right? So it would have been very easy for me to identify spaces where I was treated differently if that was my narrative. Oh, they're treating me like this because I'm a woman. They're stealing my ideas because I'm a woman.
You're a woman,
It would have been very easy for me to do that, but because I never even thought about it, that stuff didn't bother me. I'm like, oh, okay, that person's just not a nice person.
For you, it's just a person character.
It's just a person doing something. And then I think, what can I do next time differently so that this doesn't happen to me again. Right? So now that I'm a little bit older and I look back on my career, I can see some pieces that probably wasn't okay, right? And some things that happened that might not have happened if I was not a female, but it didn't hold me back, right? It didn't. I was like, oh, this person's just irritating me, and I carried on with my life, right? Or I should have treated this situation differently because I triggered something in someone, you know? I can see that, but you know, when I reflect, I think maybe a lot of the feedback that I shared earlier around kind of me being aggressive, I wonder if that was not triggered by the environment that I was in, right? And because you can only be it if you can see it, right? And if you're in an environment where everyone is super masculine and there's one way of doing things, that's what you're going to do.
That's what
right?
you're going to do, exactly.
It's not an excuse, but it's what happens. But I changed that. So the moment I got the feedback, I changed it. I changed, and so the environment didn't keep me caged. I changed and I progressed and I flourished in the same environment I was in, right? So I don't think it was anyone's fault. It was just that's what I saw as a young person, and that's what I thought I needed to be. Which is why diversity is so important. But I don't feel like I never let it trip me, right? And when I got a little bit older, I realized that because I'm so unapologetically myself, everyone around me feel like they can do the same.
Which is great.
Right? And then that fuels me to do it even more. So I wish I could give you like an example and say this and this and that, but I just don't have it, you know. And what I can see though now that I've got people reporting to me, because I don't have children, right? But I've got a lot of women in my team, and most of them are moms, and I can see the challenges, right? So I can see that it's a little bit easier for the male figure to manage their time than for the female figure, right? And this is not anything against anyone. It's just the facts of life. If your baby is 2 years old and sick, they want their mom, right? So the mother needs to juggle, needs to juggle, right? Or if you just gave birth, it takes you 18 months to get back into any normal routine, if not longer, right? So there is a little bit of a knock there that comes just genetically from being a female, that I think men maybe don't always understand, and I don't fully understand because I don't have children. But that's also why it's your responsibility when you get into a leadership position to create an environment where people can still feel like they have a life, right? If you are not happy at home, you're not going to be happy at work.
That's so true. What advice would you give young women who are trying to navigate like early careers?
So a couple of things, right? You have to do the work, okay? No one is going to treat you with little gloves because you're a girl or because you're a female. You have to work.
No one's going to spoon feed you
No,
also.
you have to work, right? And sometimes you have to work harder than other people depending on the environment that you're in.
Yes.
It's okay. I mean, that's okay. Sometimes it's going to be good and sometimes it's going to be tough, but you have to put in the work, right? The second thing is don't change who you are. So don't fall into the trap where you feel like you have to be ultra masculine. Unless you are masculine, then you can do that, right? But also don't feel like you need to be ditzy because you're the girl in the room. I'll take the meeting minutes. I'll take the notes. You don't have to do that, right? Just be yourself. And then when you get to a table, you've kind of worked towards a seat at the table, and you get to that table, make sure that you speak up. And this is tough, right, for some people, especially if you grew up in a household where you were not allowed to speak at the table, right? Or I understand there's lots of things.
A lot of things we have to unlearn.
And also,
when we leave.
Culturally, now that I work across 54 markets, culturally we're very different, right?
Yes.
We're very different. But it is your responsibility to speak up. If you are sitting in a meeting and you do not have an opinion in that meeting, why are you there? Right? So, and I wrote about this on LinkedIn the other day, and I got lots of mixed. I upset a lot of people, which I was very surprised by.
Yeah.
But my now we're in the virtual world, right?
Yes.
I hate it. I'm just gonna say it. I hate it. Okay? I feel like energy and connecting with people in person, that's what builds a culture. That's what builds team culture. But that's just the world that we're in now. And if you start working in global companies, by default it's virtual because I can't have people in Atlanta in person. My team in Egypt aren't going to be here. So you live in a virtual world. Switch on your camera.
Yes.
Okay? If I am giving you time or you are giving me time, switch on your camera so that I can see you.
Yes.
Because that is how we're going to connect.
That's the only way.
Right?
We only have
Switch
virtual.
on your camera. Switch on your camera and contribute in the meeting.
Yes.
Even if it's one sentence or even, and I'm not saying go out of your comfort zone, be the extrovert, be loud, say stuff that doesn't matter. I'm not saying that, right? But if you want to progress, you need to have impact in the meetings that you're in. People need to see the value that you add. You're not going to add value by sitting with a little screenshot picture and like typing your things in the comments, guys. No. You have to lean in. And it's uncomfortable. Especially for young females. I don't know why. It's uncomfortable. But try. And it's going to feel...
to actually dissect on. Like, why is it uncomfortable?
It is uncomfortable. And I don't know why. Like, for me, it wasn't. But I was also aggressive, apparently. So, but you have to try. And this is the advice I give. I've got many young women that I mentor. And my advice to them is, guys, you have to try. So switch on your camera. Don't speak in the first meeting. Switch on your camera. And then see how it makes you feel. It's going to make you feel uncomfortable. Then the next time you switch it on, it's going to feel less uncomfortable. Then put up your hand and say something. No one is going to judge you for having an opinion. We all think that people think about us all the time. This is how self-involved we are as people. We think that everyone looks at us and then think about us the whole day.
Yes.
Oh, that person shouldn't have said that. No one does that. I don't have the time. You don't have the time. I think about myself. You think about yourself. I don't walk out of a meeting and think, oh, that person said that. Can you believe it? No one does that. But we think people do that. So you get so in your own head that you don't want to speak up because you think you are more important than you are, guys.
Yeah.
Please. It's not that hard. And then you try. And then next time you try again. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But you have to speak.
Have you ever, I guess you haven't, but imposter syndrome in a workplace?
No, I have. Can you believe it?
Really?
I have. It was very hard. I never.
Like, how do you overcome it?
Yeah, look, I didn't think that was a real thing. So let me just say that.
Okay.
I didn't think it was a real thing, and I wouldn't have felt like that because I was in one company for 12 years, right? So like I knew everyone around me, and so I never had the need to feel like that, right? I grew up in a family of people, so I never felt like that. When I moved into this role, it hit me, and it was no one's fault. It's not the company. It was just me because I went from being the main
girl.
Person. Oh, everyone knows me.
Now
no one challenges me.
And get to know people.
And I moved into this organization, into the biggest brand in marketing, right? So leading Coca-Cola for the Coca-Cola company from the outside. So I was an outsider coming in. And I'm sure lots of people were like, we're going to just suss this out for a bit, which is normal, right? It's not your mother's brand, okay? It's like, right? So I understand the reactions and stuff. But I got so much in my own head that I thought that I disappeared for like 3 months. It was very tough, right? So, and you know what I learned out of that, and this is maybe the advice I would give from an imposter syndrome perspective, is firstly, it's okay. It happens, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit of it's a time for you to do a reality check. What is making you
Yes.
feel like this, and can you address it or can't you? Because sometimes you also feel like that because the environment that you're in is not right.
It's not right.
And then leave,
Yeah.
right? So you need to assess what are the drivers that's making you feel like that. We grow up. So let me start with this is the most important thing probably I'm going to say today, right? There is a difference between self-confidence and self-worth.
Yes.
Okay? It's not the same thing.
Yes.
But growing up, your confidence is so connected to your identity because of the schooling system, right? So, oh, you did well in a test, congratulations. Oh, you ran the fastest, congratulations. So it's very output driven, right? So your identity was crafted around the amount of things that you did well, right?
Yes.
So that's not the truth, right? So your self-worth is, as a person, what am I worth? Right? Despite my outputs, despite how good I am at things, what am I worth? I'm a good person. I love, I care, I give, whatever your values are. That is your self-worth. And no one should be able to take that from you, right?
Yes.
And that is where your center should sit. But our center sits in our confidence or self-confidence. And how confidence works is the more you do things, the more confident you become. So when you move into a new space or you have to do a new job, your confidence will not be there because you're a novice, right? So you have to accept that you're going to fail. You have to lean into the fact that you're not going to have all the answers. And you're going to have to say, okay, I'm super not confident right now because I don't know. But the fact that you are not confident because your outputs aren't at the level that you used to should not impact your person, right? Or your feeling of self. And we don't know how to pull those things apart because that's not how we grow up. And once you understand that your outputs and your confidence is not who you are, it's a little bit easier to navigate big changes like that.
People need to write notes when they listen to this, actually, and go dissect and think about what they have to do to improve and to kind of like grow themselves, you know?
Look, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, right? So I was 28 when I decided to change my life. And I set some goals in place, and I said, I remember this, I was 28 years old, and I said, 10 years from now, I'm going to look back and I'm going to see how my life has changed. 10 years. I gave myself 10 years. I didn't say it's going to change overnight. And last year was my 38th birthday, and I was completely overwhelmed. Everything I wanted, I got because of the work that I did. And it's the work that I put in, right? It's not something that just happened overnight.
And it's not like it
wasn't easy. It was 10 years.
Light a candle and manifest.
No, it was 10 years. 10 years of hard work, sacrifice, things I had to give up. But it was a decision I made. I decided that I'm going to change my life, and I changed it. So this instant gratification thing is not real.
Right? And the sooner we realize, I think the more we will feel like life is rewarding because you put in the work. Okay, so Coca-Cola has a rich history of memorable advertising campaigns, right? Can you share one campaign that like holds a special place in your heart?
There's a couple. There's a couple.
You can share a couple.
There's a couple. Look, there's a piece of work that the company did very long ago, right? So, and it's called the Hilltop ad, and it was the first like real stand for diversity that a big corporate organization took. It was very long ago, like I don't even think I was born, right? I didn't even know about this work until I came into the company, but I find it so inspiring because of the values that it stands for. So that's one thing, one piece that I'm really passionate about. I love the story about Christmas. So you know that the fat red Father Christmas is a Coke asset, right?
Really?
I didn't know that either until I started. I didn't know that either, but I'm going to tell it the story here because it makes me so proud because I work here. So the previous Father Christmas, you can go Google this, didn't look like this at all. Okay?
Really?
No, it was like a thin, like pasty person, didn't look like this, right? And Coca-Cola decided, from an asset perspective, Christmas embodies all of our values, right? It's about being together, family time, etc. And they created this red and white Father Christmas, right? That embodies the jolly nature of the brand and the Christmas spirit, etc. And then that became synonymous with Christmas worldwide, right?
I did not know that.
And that is a beautiful personification of the role that a brand can play in culture, right? So that's also really interesting.
That's very cool.
And then growing up, I mean, the Share a Coke stuff is amazing, right? I think the fact that you can connect with people so easily through a campaign so simple, and the impact that had, I was very jealous that wasn't my work, which is always a sign of a good, for me, of in my own mind, of like good work. And then what the team here in South Africa did is they took it even further, and they launched the phonetic can. So they had the names, because we've got so many different names or languages in the country, right? So they launched
that was really cool.
But then they spelled, you spelled out your name phonetically on the can, so that all of us can learn about each other. And that I felt was really powerful, very much connected to culture and some real consumer insights behind that. So really proud of that work and the team that did that. And then by the time this is live, I can talk about this because it will be out. This is, for me, the work that I've done in my career that I'm most proud of, right? So I'm going to show you. This is called Waza. It's Coca-Cola. The can is prettier, but I don't have the can to show you today. So it is the Coca-Cola formula reformulated to embody the African continent. No, this has never been done before. We don't reformulate Coke.
Coke is Coke.
We don't do that. So we wanted to embody the frequency and the boldness and the vibrancy of the African continent within our product, right? So this is what's done. It's a global launch. It'll go into the world, but it was developed in Africa by a full African team. The label design is a Kenyan illustrator. Our partners are from Nigeria and South Africa. We're working with Uncle Waffles. She's this kind of the soundtrack and the story behind what we're telling here. And even the ingredients in the liquid is representative of the full continent.
What does it taste like?
We don't tell you what the flavor is, right? So every person that drinks it has a different experience. So a couple of months ago, we launched one called Y3000, and that's what would Coke taste like if it was in the year 3000, right? Created by AI. Or we launched a collaboration with Marshmallow, and we called it Coca-Cola Marshmallow. So so everyone's got a different experience when they taste it, right? So for me, it tastes like the blazing savannah, right? I'm making that up. So there's I'm not going to tell you it's grenadilla flavored, or because it's not like that. It's an experience that we try to embody in the liquid of Coca-Cola.
That's really cool.
And I'm so proud of it because it's so African, right? It's so African and it's so authentic, and it's, we really wanted to do this, and we worked really hard globally to get everyone on board, because it's the Coke brand. You don't mess with that, you don't play around with that, and the fact that we got so much creative freedom to make it our own and to embody what makes this continent so special and powerful is, for me, the highlight of my career to date.
That is so cool. I'm so excited for it to launch. Maybe we should have like a tasty nyana, on the podcast.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, so if you had the opportunity to host a dinner party with like 3 historical figures, and you were responsible for selecting their beverages, who would it be and what would you serve them?
I have 4 figures, and 2 of them are not historical, I don't think, but they are bold and iconic for me. So I will probably sit around it. And this answer changes, right, depending on where I am in my life. But right now, I would probably invite Michelle Obama, Taylor Swift, Maya Angelou, and Amelia Earhart. That's who I would invite.
And then what would you serve them?
I would serve Michelle Obama Diet Coke or Coke Light, because she's so classy and stylish. I love her. If you haven't read her book, please. It's amazing. Yeah, I also love her. Her husband is because she is. That's a fact. But I also like him. But she's definitely the backbone for me. So I would give her Diet Coke. I would give Amelia Earhart normal Coke, right? Because she was. When I read her biography, and like way back when, she was like, I know that you say I can't do it, but I'm going to show you that I can, right? So I'll just give her like the real thing. And then for Taylor Swift, I would give Waza, right? So I would give her kind of the Waza-fied version of Coke, because she does things so authentically. I feel like bottling us so authentically would be a nice match. And then Maya, it's so tough, because when I had to change my ways, it was her quote that carried me, right? And she's got a saying where she says, people will forget what you did and they'll forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel,
yes.
right? And that's still what I carry, like when I get really upset, or when I like, we have to push, or I want to win an award, or whatever is driving me. That stuff's not important to other people, right? So then I always have to remind myself, these things don't matter. The only thing that matters is how people feel.
Yes.
If they feel and believe in what you're doing, they will follow you. You don't have to like push, you know? So that was the kind of the backbone to my leadership style and how I changed. So I feel like she deserves like something
great. So what would the something great?
I mean, you don't really get much better than the real thing, right? You don't really get much better, but maybe I'll give her like our Coke Zero formula. Maybe I'll give her Coke Zero, you know, and it's not because it's zero sugar, it's because I'm always surprised by the quality and the taste of that liquid, despite the fact that it doesn't have sugar, right? Like, so, I mean, we constantly reformulate because there's new things coming onto the market, and we make it better and better. But for me, I feel like that just embodies, it's like against all odds, you know, you stay true to the real thing, but you're defying all the odds, right, that come against you because of the challenges that were put in your stride. So that's what I would give her. They'll all be drinking Coke. They don't have a choice. No other beverages.
No other beverages, not even water.
No.
I love that. Okay, so finally, what message or piece of advice would you like to share with young women aspiring to follow in your footsteps?
Just do it. You know, I know that sounds so simple, but just do it. Decide, you know, make a decision. Make a decision to be great and then do it, you know? So don't ever feel like you have to stand back because of who you are or what you are or where you've come from, right? Just do it. But you have to believe first, and you can't believe if you haven't decided, right? So know who you are, know what sets you apart from other people, and go, you know? So you have to know who you are. This is the other thing, right? So as you go through your career, we're all good at what we do, guys. Yeah. So you're not going to get into a company like this or to the top if you are not good at what you do. Which means you are surrounded by people that are equally as good as you. Yes. Okay? So you have to know what it is that makes you different from other people, so that you can craft your narrative and your story around that. Because then it's easier for people to connect with you, or when they are thinking about opportunities to say, but this person has this. Or so everyone does the job, but this person is different, right? Yes. So what is that thing for you? What is it, right? And work on that, constantly work on that, so that as you go through your career, that is what you leave with people. Every interaction, that's what you leave behind. But you have to first know what you are and what you're not. Because if you're going to try to be everything, you're going to be nothing. Facts.
Facts. Facts. I love that. Okay, so now we're going to get into a segment that we call This or That. I'm going to give you a couple of questions, and it's literally you choose option A or option B. Let's make it quick. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Coke or Diet Coke?
Diet Coke.
Carling Black Label or Castle Light?
Whew, that's tough because I work on both. And I love both. So Black Label is the most awarded beer in the world, and Castle Light is amazing just in terms of taste. And I don't know, I'm going to say Carling Black Label because of the authentic values of the brand.
Okay, movie or book?
Book.
Night out or night in?
Night out.
Brunch in bed or dinner in town?
Dinner in town.
Do you prefer breezy breakfast or sundowners?
So it depends on where I am, but boozy breakfast because then I've got the whole day.
Okay, pizza or burger?
Pizza.
Bush or beach?
Bush.
Hiking or swimming? You don't have time to think.
I know, but I love both so much. Can I hike and then swim?
Sure. So hiking then.
Hiking.
Yoga or boxing?
Boxing.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
To wrap about This or That. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and for all the valuable food for thoughts that you laid out.
That was fun. Thank you so much for the time.
It was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope that you guys got that there's something that helps someone in the conversation.
Definitely.
Thank you for the time and the invitation.
Thank you. And that wraps up our enlightening conversation with Silke, Brand Director at Coca-Cola Africa. I hope you found her journey and advice as inspiring as I did. From overcoming challenges, embracing leadership roles, and combating imposter syndrome, Silke's insights are invaluable for anyone looking to make their mark in the corporate world. Thank you, Silke, for sharing your story and wisdom with us today. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit from these insights. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.